First Kings. So you want to find First Kings. We're going to start in chapter 18. Now, I have a question. And first of all, there was a rich man. I mean, a really, really rich man. He was so rich, he had money he didn't know what to do with. So he built a mansion, and in the back, he put a big pool. And in the pool, for some strange reason, he stocked it with alligators. And so there's 10 or 12 alligators swimming around in his pool. And he had a big party one night, and a lot of guests are hanging around the pool and looking at the alligators and imbibing adult beverages. And the man said, I tell you what, everybody, I've got an offer to make. If there's a man here who'll swim across this pool and get out unharmed, I will give that man either my daughter in marriage or $1 million, whichever he chooses. And as soon as he said chooses, there was a splash at the end of the pool. And there was a young man swimming frantically, furiously across the pool. And somehow he got out unharmed. And so the millionaire went over and put his arm around him and said, wow, you're some young man. I can't believe you did that. And so I'll keep my word. Which do you want, the $1 million or my daughter's hand in marriage? And the young man said, I don't want either your money or your daughter. I want to know the name of the guy that pushed me in the pool. That was his question. Who pushed me in the pool? And some have said to me, why are you a Christian? What in the world ever convinced you to do that? And you know something? I just have to answer because I met Jesus. I didn't believe a series of facts. It wasn't mental. It was experiential. I had an encounter with the living Jesus Christ, and I can never deny that I met him and that he has changed me, that he is changing me, and that we converse and relate to one another person to person. I don't believe in a set of ideas. I believe in a person. And I have experienced this person. And when my life has been wonderful and when my life has been horrible, I've never doubted that I met this person. That's why. Now, George Barna is a Christian sociologist, and he does a lot of research. And he did some recent research with the two groups of people, Glue and He Gets Us. And they asked tens of thousands of people who practice no faith this question. Do any of the following, and they had a list of things, cause you to doubt Christian beliefs? Select all that apply. And they had 5 responses that topped the list. They're on the screen. Look at the 5 questions or doubts most unbelievers had about the faith. 42% of them said, my question is, why are you people such hypocrites? That keeps me from the faith. The second, 31% said, you guys don't believe in science. You want us to just close our eyes and trust in something no matter what science says. That's a hurdle between me and faith. Another group said human suffering. If your God is so loving and so powerful, then why is there so much suffering in the planet? I need to know that before I would put faith in your God. Fourthly was, you guys claim to be exclusive. Your Jesus says he's the only way? You're kidding me. How can one be the only way? How can you have all the answers in one religion? And then the fifth one was, with all that's going on in the world, with all of the wars and all of the problems and the famine and the suffering, are you saying that Jesus is the answer? And those are legitimate questions. And so over the next weeks, we're going to, as a congregation, tackle those and other questions, some of which you've asked me, because I've asked several of you. What questions do you have? So we're in a question and answer series all summer long. We're going to do that one way or another. Okay? Tell me okay. I mean, we're going to do it anyway, but I want you to be in agreement. Okay? That'd be nice. 1 Kings chapter 18. We're going to talk about 3 people this morning. It's a story. And it's a story about a prophet. The prophet's name is Elijah. It's a story about a king and a queen. The king is Ahab, the king of the northern kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes, and his wicked wife Jezebel. And in 1 Kings chapter 18, there is an amazing conflict that is set up. And I want you to see the setup. Look in chapter 18 of 1 Kings. Let's see, verse 17. 1 Kings 18:17. Ahab was a king who did not worship Yahweh. There were 19 kings of the northern kingdom. And of the 19 kings, exactly 0 of them worshiped Yahweh. All of them led Israel to worship other gods, false gods, demonic creatures disguising themselves as gods. And Ahab married a woman who was not from Israel. She was a Sidonian, and she came in as a serious worshiper of Baal. She wasn't just a worshiper of Baal, she was evangelistic. She was aggressive. She brought with her hundreds of prophets of Baal and prophets of Asherah. And so the kingdom of Israel was seriously infected. In fact, in the list of all the kings, it says about Ahab that nobody did more wickedness in the northern kingdom than Ahab. He topped the list of wickedness in some ways like New Mexico tops the worst lists in our country. And so this wicked king, this idolatrous king, and this aggressive Baal-worshiping queen are leading the nation. And Elijah is prophet of God. Look at verse 17. When Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, "Is it you, you troubler of Israel?" And he answered, "I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, because you have abandoned the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. Now, therefore, send and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal, and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." Asherah was a female goddess. And one of the ways you worshiped her was put up a tree or a pole, Asherah poles in the Old Testament. And over again, the prophets of God said, tear down those Asherah poles. And so here's 850 false prophets. And Elijah calls a showdown. You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're all there. And you know the story how he said, let's see which God answers our altar. You put up an altar, I'll put up an altar, and we'll see who answers by fire. And they did theirs for hours and hours, and nothing happened. And then Elijah put up a bull, he killed it, he put water all over it, water in the trough, called down fire. Fire came and burned it all up. And then he said, if this is God, worship him. And all the people of Israel who were there, they saw it. They said, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. And so it says at the end of the chapter, seize the prophets of Baal. Let none of them escape. They seized them. Elijah brought them down to the brook Kidron and slaughtered them there. And so you probably know that story. Great, wondrous, victorious. I mean, imagine standing in front of thousands of people, calling down the fire of God, and it shows up. And then he kills all of these false prophets. But I want us to skip to chapter 19, okay? Now, Elijah is a major prophet. He's listed 29 times in the New Testament. When Jesus said to his disciples, who do people say that I am? They said, some people say that you're Elijah, come back. Did you know that the end of the Old Testament ends with Elijah? In Malachi chapter 4, the last 2 verses of the New Testament is a familiar promise that John the Baptist took on and that Jesus mentioned. I want to read it. It's Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. The last verses before Matthew. Here's what it says. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. And he will turn the hearts of fathers to their children, and the hearts of children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with a decree of utter destruction. And so here is this prophet. When Jesus went up on the Mount of Transfiguration, who showed up? Moses showed up representing the law. And of all the prophets, which prophet showed up? It was Elijah. So he's a big dog. He's an important prophet. And he has just had an incredible spiritual experience. God sent fire at his word. Prophets all killed and destroyed. I mean, this guy is on a high. And then look at chapter 19, 1 Kings chapter 19. This is the story I want us to get into today. I think if I use my imagination a little, Ahab went home and said to his wife, "Honey, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is our budget for the prophets, our HR, our amount of personnel has really gone down. We're free from a lot of money. The bad news is all your prophets are dead." And so this woman responded. Look how she responded. Verse 1, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, "So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." That's pretty strong. I'm going to kill you in the next 24 hours, or I'm okay if I get killed. It's me or you. One of us is going down, and it's happening now. That's a serious death threat. I mean, imagine, have you ever gotten a death threat because of your ministry? Has someone ever said to you, "I'm going to kill you because you love God, because of what you've done"? Fortunately or unfortunately, I have been given a death threat. It was kind of a bucket list of mine, and I achieved that several years ago. Now look at Elijah's response. It says in verse 3, he was afraid, and he rose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. So he went south. It's about a 25-mile journey. So this holy, victorious prophet is vulnerable after his victory, and he is afraid. It's a little counterintuitive. We would expect him to say, "Sweetie, bring it on. I dealt with your prophets, and now I'm willing to deal with you. I'll meet you out in front of the saloon at noon tomorrow." But instead, he took off. He took off like the roadrunner from the coyote. He ran for his life, and then look what happens next. Verse 4, he left his servant, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, and I want you to see what he says to God. This is important. He said, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." 3 phrases I want you to look at. First of all, he says, "It is enough." Let me read between the lines. He's saying, I can't take anymore. It's enough. You've probably been there where you said, when is this going to stop? When is it going to get better? When is this going to be over? I can't take anymore. If you've ever felt that way, you're in good company. The big dog prophet Elijah was there. I can't take anymore. Then the next phrase, he said, "Now, O Lord, take away my life." In other words, he's saying, I'm done. I'm useless. I have no more to offer. I'm empty. I may as well just die. I don't see any hope as I look to the future. And I know you've been there. I'm done. I have no hope. Things are not getting better. They're incrementally getting worse and worse, and there's no hope in my bucket. If you've been there, if you are there, the Elijah was there as well. Third thing he said is, I'm no better than my fathers. In other words, he's comparing himself to those who were successful. He's saying, as I look at those other men and women of faith, I'm no better. I'm no good. This week, I've been meeting with some staff members at the school where I work interviewing possible counselors. And we've been saying to them, what are the issues that teenagers are facing? And all of them have said a major issue teenagers are facing is comparison. Because they watch TikTok and they're nothing like the people. They watch Snapchat and they're not as pretty or as handsome or as strong. They watch the other social media and they go, wow, I don't measure up. And comparison is a major issue in our culture today. And Elijah was there. I'm no better than my fathers. Can you see those three things? I can't take anymore. I'm done. I have no hope. And I can't measure up. I'm not up to the job. And so that's his emotional state. I'm ready to die. Just kill me and get it over with. Maybe you've said that. It says in verse 5, look at verse 5. And he lay down and slept under a broom tree. Sometimes the best thing to do is take a nap. Look at it tomorrow. I don't know about you, some of the worst experiences I've ever had were at night. And I just needed to take a break, get some sleep, and look at it with fresh eyes in the morning. And God, what did God do? Look at God's response. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. Isn't that interesting? It's time for breakfast. Come on, get up. Didn't call him any names, didn't rebuke him, didn't offer any ministry other than food and drink. And behold, there was at his head a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. Now, in my imagination, it's a cinnamon roll. Okay? And it's some really fizzy water. And he ate and drank and lay down again. So another little nap. And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. Journey? Yeah, you're going somewhere. And so he rose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. So this is Mount Sinai. It's another 50 miles to get out of Judah and then over into what is now Saudi Arabia to Mount Sinai. And so he goes, he runs from Jezebel, he takes a nap, he gets this angelic food, a really holy cinnamon roll times 2, and then he journeys to the Mount Sinai. Now when he gets there, verse 9, there he came to a cave. And we literally, we know where that cave is. We can identify that cave. And the word of the Lord came to him. And God said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Now, I love that question. This is the first thing that God says to Elijah after his victory, after his running, after his complaints, and after his restoration physically. And he comes, and God says, what are you doing here, Elijah? Now, it doesn't say in the text what God emphasized. Do you think God said, what are you doing here, Elijah? Or you think maybe he said, what are you doing here? Or maybe he said, what are you doing here? I think, and I'm the preacher, so I got to be right. No. But my opinion is that he focused on the word here. What are you doing here? Why aren't you back where you were needed, where you were working? You've run away from your assignment. What are you doing here? And it's fascinating what Elijah answers. Look at verse 10. He said, I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. Here's my resume. I've been your top prophet for years and years. Then he says, your people of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They've thrown down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword. In other words, your people are so steeped in idolatry, they're useless. It's done. And then he says, and I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. I'm the only one you've got, and your people don't even care. They've abandoned you and me. That's why I'm here. I'm the last hope, and I don't have any. Verse 11, God said, go out stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak, and he went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice, and this low whisper, not the wind, not the earthquake, not the fire, but this whisper. And what did the whisper say? Same exact question. What are you doing here, Elijah? Sometimes we have to hear from God repeatedly before we respond. And I am so grateful that God does not give up. He does not stop talking. And I know there have been times, it was multiple times I heard the same thing before I actually acted on that same thing. You been there? And it's a whisper. But he wrapped his face, he went out, and he heard the same question. What are you doing here? Why are you here? And he gave the same answer. Verse 14. I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel forsaking your covenant, thrown down your altars, killed your prophets with the sword, and I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. I'm hiding because I'm the only one you got, and I don't have anything left to give. May as well kill me. Look what the Lord said. Verse 15. Again, there's not a rebuke. There's not a judgment. There's not a condemnation. There's mercy. But literally, what he's going to say is, back to work, prophet. Back to work. That's what he's going to say. Look at the words. Verse 15. And the Lord said to him, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah, you shall anoint to be prophet in your place. So God is giving him his assignment. We got a new king of Israel. We're getting rid of Ahab. We got a new king of Syria. We got a new king or a new prophet. Your servant, Elisha, who's been helping you, he's going to take your place. Okay, so he just gives him fresh assignments. There's no rebuking. There's no judgment for running. It's just, okay, go back to work, buddy. Back to work. Verse 17. And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu put to death, and the one who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha put to death. And so that's going to be played out over the next several chapters in 1st and 2nd Kings. But then notice the by the way. There's a by the way in verse 18. He doesn't say it, but I'm putting it in there. By the way. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. In other words, you are not the only one. And the things that the next guy, Elisha, is going to do is going to put some of Elijah's stuff to shame. Here's a Bible trivia question. Who did the most miracles in the Bible? The most that are counted. Number 1 would be Jesus. Number 2, Moses. Number 3, Elisha. And number 4, Elijah. Now that's not bad. Top 4 of numbers of miracles that are recorded. And so this guy, in the moment of his despair, his suicidal thoughts, his I'm done, his I'll never measure up, God restores, renews, and gives him a fresh assignment. And if you keep reading, he carries out that assignment. And this all comes out of questions. It comes out of doubts. So, out of this, there's some lessons for those who are followers of Christ and those who aren't. So if I'm talking to you and you're a person who used to follow Jesus, but you're not, you are, in the words of some people, deconstructing your faith. One young lady's written a book where it says she disentangled her faith from what was real to what was really not appropriate. If you're in that, I've got some lessons for you. If you're following Jesus from the story of Elijah, 3 things. The first thing is this: the journey of faith is a journey. It's a journey. It's not an event. It may start with a series of events, but it's a journey. And that journey has doubts and questions along the way. It is okay to have doubt. It is okay to have questions. The longer I live and the more I pastor, the more questions I have. I got some important dates to talk to you about just briefly. First of all, June of 1973, I started my career as a pastor. I was the summer youth director at First Baptist College Station, Texas, and I started June 1, 50 years ago this week. And so I've been doing Christian ministry for 50 years. Some days it only feels like 10 years because I don't know what I'm doing. And some days I feel like I've been doing this forever. And this summer, I started at age 19, and this summer I'll turn 70. So I'll be 70 years alive and 50 years in the ministry this summer. And so for me, this is a summer of Jubilee. I'm celebrating all I can because I've reached a pole, and thank God I'm not done. I'm echoing Caleb. Give me that mountain. Give me new challenges. But that's the journey. And if you're in a place like Elijah where you're comparing yourself with others and you're not measuring up, you don't have to. God has a fresh assignment for you. If you're feeling totally empty, there is a spirit of renewal that will come on you whenever you're ready. That cinnamon roll is waiting. That jar of water is waiting as the Spirit refreshes your spirit. There is fresh hope that's available. It's okay to have questions and doubts. Look again, if they're up there on the screen, at those 5 major questions. What keeps you from the faith? The hypocrisy of religious people, their belief about science, the human suffering. One religion can't have all the answers, conflict in the world. We're going to talk through those questions and others, okay? So, it's a journey. Would you say that with me? It's a journey. And it's okay if you're not at the same place on the journey I'm at. And it's okay if I'm not where you're at, or your husband, or your friends. We're all on the journey, and part of being a body of Christ, a congregation, is accepting and welcoming people who aren't where you are. A lot of our judgment comes when we want someone to be like me or to be where I'm at. And frankly, that's just not going to happen. And so one of the things we have to do is open up our hearts to the fact that everybody's on a journey. That's why these doors in our congregation are open to any human being. We welcome everybody, recognizing you may not be at the place of faith yet. And we're going to love you. We're going to welcome you. And if you never get to the place of faith, we're going to love you and we're going to welcome you. You can belong before you believe. We believe that so much we put it on the wall. Belong before you believe. Because people need to see a real live gospel person. And that's you and that's me on the journey. Okay, that's lesson 1. Lesson 2 is wedges or clamps. Wedges or clamps. Because a doubt can be a wedge that comes between me and God. A question can be a wedge that gets between me and God, or they can be a clamp that presses us into God. And I want to encourage you to let the doubts that you have, the questions that you have, press you into God, not be a wedge between you and God. I want you to see those pictures. Don't let your questions keep you from God. Let your questions push you into God. Oh God. Because that's what Elijah did. He got under the broom tree. He let out his whine, his complaint. He was honest before God. And then when God said, "Why are you here?" he was honest. It's okay. Let it press you into Him. Let it not come between you. So if your bitterness if your treatment by other Christians, if your desire to be scientific rather than just stupid faith, if that's between you and God, question Him, seek Him, look for Him. That's the second lesson. I want my questions to be a clamp, not a wedge. I want my doubts to be a clamp, not a wedge. Third lesson is this. Along the journey, mercy. Mercy in the journey. You need to have mercy on people who are not where you're at, on people who are frankly wrong, on people who frankly are bad. They're bad people. Let's have some mercy. We always got to remember how much mercy God had on me. And I know because I was finally acquainted with my own wickedness, with how sinful I was. God was so merciful on me for so long. How can I not extend mercy to others? Mercy. And some of us need to be merciful to ourselves. We need to quit judging ourselves. We need to quit comparing ourselves with others. Sometimes you just need to turn off the social media. Sometimes you need to quit watching Christian TV where everybody's story ends out well. Sometimes you need to quit reading the testimonies that make you feel guilty. Have mercy. Mercy on the journey. And you know, remember, mercy is when you don't get what you deserve. Whoa. God has had so much mercy on me. Now, wherever you are in the journey, don't stop. Just keep going. Just keep going. Become Dora. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Keep on swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep on seeking, asking, searching. And now, I love this African proverb I read. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I want to go far. Therefore, I'm not going by myself. I'm going in community. I'm going as a part of a tribe. I'm going in small groups. I'm going with friends. I'm going with questioners, with doubters. I'm going with all kinds of people. I am not in this alone. And so I encourage you, wherever you are, on the journey, go. Keep going. Don't stop. And don't go by yourself. Seek out people who have answers, who've been there, who are a little further on the journey or who are not so far on the journey. Help somebody along. Get somebody to help you along. This journey is frankly going to last forever. You know, when we get to heaven, what are we going to do? You ever wondered that? What are we going to do? Well, obviously, the cartoons have told us we're going to sit on a cloud and play a harp. That's what we're going to do forever. So if you've gotten your theology from Looney Tunes, come on. Heaven is not static. Heaven is dynamic. There is more to do. We just get to do it without disease, without sin, or without death. Hallelujah. We get to accomplish the things God has for us without those hindrances that Adam and Eve and you and me have brought upon ourselves. God says in Revelation 21, I will make all things new. And we're not going to sit around. We're not going to be in a choir for 20 million years. We're going to accomplish greater things, things we can't even imagine now. We don't know what all it is, but we know it's better. So the journey is not going to end. You know, we tend to think of life as, okay, then what? Well, then it gets better, it gets longer, and it's still a journey of knowing and following Jesus Christ. It's a journey. And there's doubts and questions this side of eternity. There's people to help along the way. There's people who will help me. There's mercy on the journey. If I could say anything to us as Christians in this culture, it is, I want you to love people and I want you to be merciful. There's enough judgment. There's enough criticism. There's enough, okay? There's enough. And trust me, there is a judge. His name is not Judy. His name is Jesus, and we can trust Him to take care of all accounts. But that's not right. I know it's not right. And someday everything will be made right. The justice is coming from the judge. Meanwhile, let's walk the line of truth, but let's have mercy. Okay, so we're going to pray now. If you're online, we're going to slip away and just do some prayer. So thank you for coming. We're going to dismiss you online because now we're going to do some Holy Spirit ministry in the congregation. So Tony, come on up. Here's the way we do this. So first of all, just relax, okay?